All right, so I'm going to go right on into our intros for Veronica and Matt. I'm going to see. Here's Veronica. I can see you and hear you. And here's Matt. Nice to see a familiar, friendly face, Matt. Quick bios. Veronica, Senior Product Manager at Gaia, where she leads workflow automation and AI product development. That's awesome. Before Gaia, she was at Meta, driving AI platform and governance strategy for frontier large language models, and has shipped machine learning products across the energy and B2B SaaS sectors. I can see a natural pivot into communications from there for sure. Holds a master's in computer science and has spent her career at the intersection of emerging technology and real-world operations. Welcome, Veronica.
Thank you. Really stoked to be here.
Matt, it's good to see you again. Founder and CEO of VistaBeam, which deploys wireless broadband systems covering approximately 45,000 square miles across Wyoming, Colorado, Kansas, and Nebraska. That's wild, Matt. I didn't realize it was that big. I knew it was big. Matt has been in the wireless broadband industry for almost 30 years and is a true innovator in the sector, founding board member and past president of WISPA, and also a member of BITAG, the Broadband Infrastructure Technology Advisory Group. And in 2025, VistaBeam was named WISPA's Operator of the Year. And Matt, I just love how you're willing to come on and share. I caught you at the NTIA conference recently. I really appreciate, that not just what you've learned, but that you're willing to share it. So welcome, Matt.
Good to be here. Happy to help.
I'm going to step back and let you folks take it away. And in about 15 minutes, I'll come back to help you out with a Q&A. So take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeremy. Hey, everyone. I'm Veronica. Super excited to partner with Matt. I'm from Gaia. We are stoked to tell you a little bit about AI today and how you can get started. There are our faces again. So first, kind of talking to our customers, VistaBeam is a customer of Gaia, thinking about like why kind of using AI and like getting started with AI can be a little bit tricky. And Matt will talk a little bit more about this, but like the core of your AI kind of success is how well it can understand your data. For example, you're using it in a personal case, right? If you give it access to your calendar, it's going to be a bit more successful in planning your week. If you give it access to your meeting notes, has a little bit more context. So some of our customers that we're finding have their data across several systems, like billing, your BSS, ticketing, you're in Zendesk, you're in PlanHat, you're in all these different sources. And so that can be kind of hard to tie together good AI use cases. Another important part of having a successful AI use case is having access to that data easily, like the AI can go out and find that data. Again, that can be kind of hard with some of our legacy systems that we find at ISPs. They don't have public APIs, or there's other like barriers to getting your data connected. That can be a challenge as well. And then even if you have those things, maybe you don't yet have infrastructure set up where you feel safe testing an AI use case with your live data. And so all of these three challenges can kind of make it really hard for ISPs to get started with AI. And so we're really excited to bring you accessible use cases and ideas on how to build out your roadmap to using AI more in your operations, even if you don't have these foundational parts yet. Matt, anything you want to add there?
Yeah, just having that source of truth for your AI systems to draw from. AI is just like anything else. It's garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't have good information for it to draw on, it's not going to be able to draw the right conclusions. So it's really important to make sure you've got that source of truth. And then I think most ISPs are going to run into a situation where there's going to have to be a lot of auditing of existing data, unless you just started and you have like a completely clean slate. You're probably carrying some baggage. So there's going to be a lot of work to go back and get that stuff cleared out and audited, get rid of the false positives and get rid of the noise. And then the systems will work a lot better. That's something that, as we've been in business for 24 years now, and the stuff just continues to build up. We keep finding more and more stuff as we get further down. It's important to make sure that you get your stuff as accurate as possible so your tools work the best they can.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. So whether you have this beautiful, clean data that you can draw from, or you just need to use an AI provider like ChatGPT or Claude in the web app, we think all the use cases today are pretty accessible for those varying levels. But the clean data is a great place to start. So really quick, just want to kind of highlight, sometimes when our users think of, our customers think of AI use cases, they imagine this beautiful agent autonomously accomplishing all these things across their business day to day. It doesn't have to start like that, right? We'll present some really small use cases that can grow into that, but some of the helpful terminology, also if you're a little bit nervous about diving in, so maybe you are using ChatGPT, maybe you are using Claude already just in the web app, you can also think about the scope, right? So there's like the concept of an assistant, where the assistant has a very limited scope. It only knows your help desk tickets, or it only knows, you know, what the data that you've given it. Or I heard the previous session talking a little bit about skills. Maybe it has a skill that safely and securely connects to your database. You can have an assistant that's very well scoped and can only do a limited amount of things to kind of start testing those waters. And then when you're ready, you can start building out into an agent, which kind of takes several feedback from several different agents and starts acting autonomously. So there's also a couple different layers. As you get your feet wet a little bit, you feel a little bit more comfortable, your employees feel more comfortable using AI, you can kind of grow from like, okay, we have a skill in ChatGPT, to we have an assistant, to we have an agent. And just really quick, because those terms can be used interchangeably sometimes, the way we think about assistants versus agent is, again, very limited scope. So in Gaia, within our workflow builder, it's in a very specific context. All this assistant knows is how to write GraphQL or TypeScript, and it knows like Gaia's GraphQL API, and that's all it knows. If you ask it to go give Matt a discount on his latest bill, it's not going to do that. It's not going to know what you're talking about because we didn't give it that access. So when you're building out your workflows, it's a very limited scope. Whereas an agent that we're developing at Gaia is more autonomous. Hey, go look at Matt's account. Oh, he's had like terrible network performance. Go schedule a technician to go out there and check on him. Let's open a ticket to track it. There's a lot of noise on the line. I'm not sure if it's on my end. But agents can kind of start acting autonomously. Again, it's a progression depending on your trust levels. So how can you get started today, whether you have a full Google or AWS integration, or you're just working on the web app? We think there's three. Oh, sorry, Matt, anything you wanted to say about assistants versus agents?
No, just that sometimes it makes sense to treat an agent almost like an employee, which includes kind of having periodic reviews to make sure they're doing their job correctly, and that sometimes they can run amok. So it's important to make sure that the right guardrails are put there to prevent them from going off script.
Yeah, definitely. We've all heard those horror stories about open Claude deleting someone's whole inbox. So 3 use cases to kind of get y'all started today. We're going to cover an internal knowledge copilot for your customer service representatives. I think we're all trying to scale more with less. We're trying to grow our customer base while also not exploding the size of our team. So an internal copilot can be really helpful. Tier 1 ticket triage, again, kind of the same concept. Sometimes tickets sit there waiting to be reviewed, and the teams can't action on it because they're not assigned out yet. So that's one way to kind of speed up that process. And then churn risk scoring. I think, again, as you kind of layer on all this knowledge and you start to trust your AI providers and get your prompts and skills like really fine-tuned, you can start introducing more complex understanding like churn risk. So thinking about like an internal knowledge copilot for CSRs, it can take a couple weeks to train up a customer service agent, but your problems are somewhat repetitive. You have a backlog of tickets. Ideally, you have a backlog of documentation. So what you can actually start to do is start giving that, even again, if you're on a web app, it doesn't have to be a cool assistant tied into Zendesk. It can just be, here's our documentation, here's our training guide. And then you can hand that kind of GPT off to, or that Claude project off to your CSRs to share, to kind of start interacting with it and say, hey, this is the question I got from a customer, what documentation do we have, etc. So in doing that, you can start making your CSRs quickly powerful. Again, like Matt said, treat it like an employee always. So maybe you can't just start a new CSR and send them off into the woods to answer questions. Have someone over their shoulder looking at responses. If there's a way you can kind of tie in to be able to review the responses, but even your customer service agents telling the AI provider, like, that was a great response, I'm going to use it, or no, that was terrible. The AI provider can start to learn what's a good response and a bad response based on the same data that you started with. So we think this is a really great way. It doesn't have to be complex or overly complicated or tied into your true data sources. You can just dump documentation, give it some prompts like, hey, you are a CSR agent at a leading ISP. Here are the types of people we serve. Here's the types of problems we tend to see. We're rural, we have a lot of weather problems. Or we're urban, we have like city construction issues. Any kind of context you can give it helps it address your questions better. You can also show it what's a good response versus a bad response. Like, hey, this is a really great response for a really common error. Do not ever suggest that they just like call back or try something new. So you can also, in your prompt, start tweaking it, or in your skill, if you develop a skill, start tweaking that response. Matt, anything you want to add? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd say one of the things is getting your knowledge base put together is really important, because that ultimately helps determine how well you're going to be able to scale, because that's the sort of thing you're going to use to train employees. You can also use it to train the AI. And that's one of the things we did is we created a big knowledge base of all of our processes and all the information we use for training. And we let our AI agents use that as the background foundation for how they would operate. So getting that knowledge base put together is really important, as a good first step.
Awesome. And similarly to Matt's point, as you move on to more complex understanding and queries like tier 1 ticket triage, again, when tickets sit in a queue, just kind of waiting to be assigned, that's something LLMs are very good at. Like, I read this text and I can kind of sort out, if you give me the rules of which team it should be assigned to, I can start to parse that out automatically. And so you can see how you start tying together different pieces of these flows to get a little bit more autonomous, but it gets your teams actioning much quicker. So again, kind of download your ticket database, how they were assigned, what's a good assignment, what's a bad assignment, where are those tricky gray areas, and you can start getting your teams responding faster. And as we have here, you could even start to get your AI provider kind of starting to draft a response like, hey, Matt, I saw you're having this type of issue. We've started a work order, etc. Or you can even first have the AI kind of lay out next steps. Like, here's what we typically do for this type of ticket. Like, let's assign it to networking. Let's give networking some hints on like that customer's previous history, etc. So how good the AI is kind of depends on what you teach it, to Matt's point, like how you train it up, the documentation you give it, and then your feedback to that agent or assistant that you have for triaging tickets. But even if you're just operating from the web app, you can just dump a pile of tickets in and just say, okay, these 5 go to networking, these 5 go to billing. I can go make those changes in my system.
Yeah, I've always wanted to have a one-click customer troubleshooter that would go out and run a set of tests to figure out what the source of the issue for a customer. And AI now makes that entirely possible to do, as long as you've got the right information, the right tools for it to be able to access.
Awesome. And then finally, the holy grail, right? Churn risk scoring. This is a little bit more complex, but you can start, again, feeding in some of that ticket, some of the billing information, layering that data on top of each other, providing a good prompt, providing good evaluations, like going back and saying, good bot, bad bot, do some test runs, like Matt said, like make sure you're checking in on that performance. And you can start tying in billing knowledge and discounts and start identifying, this is a risk, here's what I'd suggest the next steps are. This is kind of level 201, but again, like recognizing that folks are at different parts of the journey, just kind of wanted to give you an idea of how you could build up your roadmap to start layering these steps on top of each other.
Yeah, this is really a key. I've seen some statistics that say reducing churn rate is the best guarantee of growth. That when churn rate gets high, it's very, very hard to recover from that. So this is an important one to stay on top of, and remember that the AI is just another tool to try and make your customer happy. So you have to use everything you can to try and make sure that you can start to anticipate their issues rather than waiting for them to call in.
Love that. I guess really quick, some common mistakes, starting with the model, like, oh, I have a Gemini model. I heard Gemini is really good at art, but not text. I need Claude. Don't worry about that in the beginning. Just kind of focus on the model or focus on your problem at hand and like, where's the biggest like time shrink that we think could be automated or like that we could train something on so our humans can deal with more complex issues. So start with your problem always. And then, yeah, there are models that are kind of better at certain things. You can even within your own provider test the different levels of models like Haiku versus Sonnet versus Opus in Anthropic's infrastructure. Some perform better than others. You might not need like the coolest model to solve like writing an email to a customer. Like Matt mentioned, feedback loops are really important. You have performance reviews for your employees. You have someone overseeing your employees. You should do the same thing for a model. And then AI is really fun. It's really easy to get excited about AI, but like sometimes it's a rules-based thing and you don't always need AI. So just don't overthink how to solve the problem. There's cool ways to automate things that don't include AI. We're here to talk about AI and I could talk to you all day about it, but I do, sometimes when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So hopefully these use cases help you see where AI strengths are, categorizing, reviewing text, writing text, following procedures, etc. Versus like if it's 28 days old, mark it as X. That's not your best use of AI.
And the feedback loop is super important, and that includes customers. We created a AI customer service agent where people could call and talk to it, and there were customers that absolutely hated it, and it didn't matter how good the tool was. It was not a human. So that was an important piece of feedback that we needed to have, and figuring out, having the things there to make sure that you've got the right interface with your customers is still probably the most important part of all this.
Awesome. Absolutely, Matt. Awesome. Short and sweet, but really excited to talk to y'all. Look forward to the questions.
That was fantastic. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Veronica. Really appreciate that. I do have some questions, and obviously, if you've got some more in the audience, please type them in. Keep the conversation going. You talked a little bit about kind of that feedback loop once you've started building, but then at the top of the presentation, you also talked a little bit about legacy data being kind of a significant problem, the quality of your legacy data. So if we were to say, can we use AI to help us get our data into a state that we can use? And when do we know that it's good enough? Or when do we know that we're ready to begin implementing AI? Or is that not a binary process? Like what's that journey look like as an ISP, getting all these disparate sources into a shape that can actually be turned into a product, if you will?
There's a lot of gray area in there. You can still do a lot of useful things with imperfect data, but as you continue to refine your processes, that's where having the issues will start to come up. So AI is definitely very capable of going through large chunks of data and helping you figure out what you need to change. So you can use it for that. But I think a lot of it involves that iteration. I guess one of the things I really like about AI is being able to iterate through a problem many times and continuing to refine the problem and refine the solution and getting better every time. So that I think is, use it to help clean up your data and just to try and you're probably never going to get it perfect, but get it as close as you can.
So if you were thinking to kind of go back to your slide there, Veronica, on probabilistic versus deterministic, is it better to deal with kind of these fuzzy areas, these gray areas by teaching the LLM that there might be fuzziness, or is it better to go back and improve the source data, or is that even a case-by-case decision?
I think it depends, and Matt would love to hear your thoughts too. It depends on like how flexible your data system is. Like if you're like, there's no way I can't touch it. Like this infrastructure is ancient. There's no way. All I can do is like move forward. Then like teaching it what a bad data. So LLMs are good at detecting patterns. They're also very good at being confidently wrong. And so don't let it assume what bad data looks like. Say like, these are the types of things. Here's 100 rows. Here's what we found. And then it kind of starts detecting those patterns. You can just dump a bunch of data and it could tell you like, hey, here's where I notice things are different. And here's where I think you should go next. Tell it, don't give me suggestions. These are the things I'm looking out for. What should I do next? I think just giving it good guidelines and good boundaries and letting it detect patterns. If you know what it is, tell it, right? Don't make it guess, because it's going to be more accurate that way and you're going to move on a lot faster.
Fantastic. Matt, anything on that?
Nope, I think she nailed it.
So what's like, you know, because you've come a long way on the journey toward integrating AI, and Veronica, you touch a lot of ISPs with Gaia there. So like, what's the smallest, like lowest risk thing an ISP could do like in the next 30 days to just get started with a meaningful process, like low hanging fruit, low trauma kind of situation?
Matt, you've been deep on the journey.
Yeah, so I think probably for a lot of smaller operators, it would be kind of figuring out how to get that knowledge base put together and putting the information that you have, and then running some customer responses through the process to see how to you know, try and get it trained so you can figure out how to run the network better. I think there's a ton of benefit to having AI looking at the network management. I don't know if that's really an easy lift. It's really important that you use some kind of a network management system that is AI accessible. Otherwise, it's a lot harder to try and troubleshoot that stuff. I know we had multiple different monitoring systems, and we've kind of centralized on using Zabbix, and Zabbix is pretty good about generating data that AI can use. It's a little complicated to set up, but that was what we needed to get to be able to use ours. Anybody using Preseem has great data to look at on that. And then something that does exist entirely outside of some of this stuff, which is using it for business management. I can, like 2 weeks ago, I had no good luck whatsoever trying to use AI to build spreadsheets, and there was so much false confidence and information that wasn't quite right. And my wife spent a lot of time with Claude. She did some things to show me how to do that, and I built a huge, very complicated model that entirely checks out, that I would not have been able to do without some outside help. And Claude just killed it, and did so much better than the other models. It wasn't even funny. That's a huge one, is to figure out how to use that to plan out some of your business management, cash flow projections, look for different points of important things in your business. That's huge, and doesn't exist inside automatic systems, but it's something that's still probably equally powerful for running a successful operation.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both. Any words on where we can find you, Veronica?
Yep, veronica@gaia.com. Our sales team and customer support teams are always super stoked to talk to folks about AI. We're getting AI in our workflow builder. We're introducing AI in the platform, kind of speed customers like Matt along. But yeah, super excited. We'll be at a couple things coming up. I think we'll be at Fiber Connect. I won't personally be there, but we're all hyped on AI. So you can ask any of us. Thanks.
Fantastic. And Matt, any last words?
Just be careful. Make sure your AI has guardrails. It's not a substitute for good judgment, common sense, and the ultimate thing, which is really paying attention to what your customers want, is very important.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your participation, and look forward to continuing our collaboration. Thank you very much, Veronica and Matt.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks, Jeremy.